Will these fall movies flop or succeed at the box office? Tron Ares comes out this October. There's a lot going against this movie. First of all, it has Jared Leto in it. Second of all, they're releasing promo images like this. This looks like something from Disney XD 10 years ago. And the last film in this franchise was considered a major flop back in 2010, making only $400 million worldwide at the box office, which really shows how much the box office has changed in 15 years. Now, if a movie made $400 million, you'd be like, oh my god, it's doing amazing. Even though Tron Legacy has become like almost a cult classic film, I absolutely love the movie, and I think the trailer for Tron Ares does look incredible. I feel like there's way too much working against this. It releasing in October when people are looking to go and see like horror movies and stuff in theaters isn't really going to help it. Sadly, I'm going to say it's going to flop. I hope it's great though. Zootopia 2 comes out this Thanksgiving, over 9 years after the first Zootopia film. It's always shocking to me that the first Zootopia movie made $1 billion at the box office, so you would think this would guarantee Zootopia 2 is going to be a massive success. And there will be no hot takes from me. I do think this movie is going to be a massive success, probably one of the biggest films of the entire year. We've been seeing this exact formula work for other Disney and Pixar films recently, like Moana and Inside Out. Neither of those films made $1 billion, but their sequels, Moana 2 and Inside Out 2, both soared over $1 billion, so I think Zootopia 2 is going to be really big, like $1.3 to $4 billion. Mortal Kombat 2 is coming out at the end of October, and it looks like this film is fully embracing the silliness. Like, we've got Carl Urban as Johnny Cage. It looks so utterly ridiculous. Now, the first Mortal Kombat movie was an absolute bomb at the box office. It only made $84 million on a budget of $55 million. Like, not even doubling your budget is crazy work, but you have to remember that this was also released on HBO Max at the same time. So with Mortal Kombat 2 actually getting a proper theatrical release, it's guaranteed to make more than the first film, but I honestly still don't think it's going to be huge. The first film was absolutely panned by critics, and I feel like it was very split among the audience members. Like, if you were a diehard fan of Mortal Kombat, you were fine with it. Anybody else who wasn't a diehard fan of the games was just like, what on earth am I watching? Even though this film isn't going straight to streaming right away like the first film, I feel like it's the type of movie that people are going to see and be like, oh yeah, I'll wait a month and watch it when it comes out to rent or something. So I'm going to say this is going to be another huge flop in this franchise. And I also think Mortal Kombat's going to be hurt by the Black Phone 2 that comes out 1 week earlier in October, and again is definitely what people are looking for right around Halloween time, being that horror vibe. Lower budget horror movies are simply a money glitch in Hollywood. Like, the first film cost under $20 million to make and gross over $161 million worldwide. Now, I don't think the Black Phone 2 is going to pull in like crazier numbers than this. It'll probably be right around this $150 to $200 million mark. So even though we don't know the budget for the sequel yet, even if it somehow like doubled or tripled, it's still going to be a profitable movie and a major success. Plus, you still have the star power of Ethan Hawke, and now Mason Thames has become a bigger star since the first film. Another so-called horror movie is getting a sequel this year with Five Nights at Freddy's 2 releasing. Now, I thought the first one was absolutely boring. I almost fell asleep watching it. Literally nothing happens for like 90% of the film's runtime. But I acknowledge I am in the minority. I never watched Five Nights at Freddy's gameplays or anything as a kid. I never played the game a day in my life. I don't know anything about the lore. I'm glad so many people out there absolutely adore this franchise. It's really just not something that's ever pulled me in. But this film releases early in December, gonna make all that crazy money over winter breaks and stuff. It's gonna be huge. Like, the first Five Nights at Freddy movies made $291 million worldwide, and it released on Peacock streaming at the same exact time. People just still chose to go ahead and see it in theaters. So not only a guaranteed success, I could see the sequel getting a big bump up and closing in on like $500 to $600 million if things get really crazy. That might be a little bit high. Even if it's under that, it's going to be a success though. In November, we're getting the new Running Man film with Glenn Powell. Now, this isn't really a remake of the 80s film of the same name. Instead, it's readapting the source material by Stephen King and claiming it's trying to be more faithful to the book. It takes place in this dystopian world where there's a TV show that you can go on and pretty much sign up to be hunted by assassins for 30 straight days, and if you win a ton of money if you survive to the end of the 30 days. So it sounds like an entertaining time. I've never actually seen the original Running Man. But as bad as people want to convince you that Glenn Powell is the next Tom Cruise, I don't really see this movie being a success at the box office. Again, people really don't rush out and see like quote unquote original films like this, even though, like I said, it's an adaptation and kind of a remake at the same time. This just has massive flop written all over. I think people will wait for it to come out on streaming or rent it, so sadly flop. Let's get an easy one out of the way. Wicked for Good. Obviously, the sequel to Wicked is coming out exactly 1 year after the first film. And obviously, this film was absolutely massive. I mean, of course, the Wizard of Oz fan base is insane. The Wicked musical is, I believe, the highest grossing musical of all time. The first film made almost $800 million. over half of that being domestic is crazy. So with how successful the first film was at the box office, and also with critics even getting some Oscar nominations, I think the sequel is going to get a big bump from people that watched it on streaming. They're going to be like, oh yeah, I'll go check out the sequel in theaters. I could see it making like $850 million. Obviously a massive success. Third Now You See Me film comes out this fall, smartly titled Now You See Me, Now You Don't. It gets bonus points for creativity there. Kind of a weird franchise at the box office. Like the first film made $350 million, and while a lot of movies get a bump up in their sequel, Now You See Me 2 only made $330 million, which again is good numbers on its own, but $20 million less than the first is definitely a downgrade. Now I do think this movie is probably going to be very entertaining, a crowd pleaser, but it releases in early November, like a week before the Wicked and Zootopia Storm comes out. So I feel like this movie's going to kind of be doomed by that fact alone, because people really just don't go to the theaters as much as they used to. I feel like if people see, oh yeah, there's huge films coming out next weekend, everybody's just going to skip over Now You See Me Don't, and it's probably going to be a flop and make the least out of any of the films in the franchise, honestly. Hopefully it proves me wrong though. Now clearly I don't need to analyze if Avatar 3 Fire and Ash is going to be a success at the box office or not, because unless you've been living in a coma for the last 15 years, I'm sure you're aware that Avatar is the highest grossing film of all time, and Avatar The Way of Water is the third highest grossing movie of all time. So instead of asking is Avatar 3 going to be a success or not, because it's obviously going to be, let's ask, is it going to crack $2 billion? Because again, it's not like Avatar The Way of Water was a flop or anything, third highest grossing movie of all time, but it did make $600 million less than the first Avatar film. Are we going to see a similar drop for the third movie? Because obviously these movies make the majority of their money overseas in markets like France, Germany, China are some of their biggest overseas markets, and right now a lot of the other countries are not happy with Americans as a whole and Hollywood movies. Things like Superman really underperforming overseas. The thing is, movies like Superman, Thunderbolts, and all these other superhero movies, or even films like Sinners that did incredible in the United States, flopped overseas, are very distinctly American films, whereas Avatar is very distinctly not American. It's just kind of this ambiguous other planet. It's just very pretty to look at, nothing incredibly complicated going on or that is deeply ingrained in like US society here. That's been the secret to these movies' success the entire time. They are visual and technical marvels that anybody in any area of the world can enjoy the story of. So even though I'm not a fan of the first two movies, I think they are incredibly mediocre to bad even. I do think Avatar 3 is going to soar over $1 billion. Might just be like a flat 2 billion actually, or like 2.1 billion, but I think it's gonna make it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and drop a like on the video if you made it this far. We're getting a new Bruce Springsteen movie this fall called Deliver Me From Nowhere with Jeremy Allen White, who you probably know from The Bear. He's playing Bruce in this movie. I do think this is something that's definitely going to be more popular with just like the everyday regular person that barely goes to the movie than us in like the film community who honestly don't care about it at all. And I know they're completely different artists and probably different types of movies too, but if a complete unknown with Timothée Chalamet playing Bob Dylan only made $140 million, I don't feel like this film is going to make any more than that guaranteed. And from everything I can find online, apparently this thing cost $50 million to make, which is kind of absurd. So I don't see this being a massive movie at all, maybe like $120 to $30 million. I'm going to put it in the flop category. Speaking of Timothée Chalamet, his new movie releases around Christmas time this year called Marty Supreme, takes place in the 1950s, and he's playing this guy that wants to become a table tennis champion. The movie's obviously going to be way more wild and dramatic than that description makes it sound, but this is being produced by A24, and it's one of the most expensive films they've ever produced, having a budget of over $70 million. I simply do not see this thing making its money back if they spend about the same amount on marketing, which you have to assume they do, because dramas for adults simply do not make a ton of money at the box office anymore. This is going to be a real test of Timothée Chalamet's star power. If he can make this movie a huge surprise success, this dude's going to be getting blank checks for the rest of his career. I'm going to have to put it in the flop category. I do think it's going to be a great movie though. Now let me know what you agree and disagree with me on in the comments below. If you want to see my box office predictions for 2026 and 2027 movies, click the playlist above me right now. I got all those predictions in there and more. Thank you so much for watching.